I uncovered the unbelievable truth behind the haunted woods of Pascagoula. I never should have opened that door. The damp, musty air clung to me as I stepped into the gloom. My heart raced, like a drum in my chest, echoing through the darkness that surrounded me. The woods were no ordinary place, they were alive with whispers, secrets hanging thick in the shadows. My friends had warned me about the stories, the glowing eyes that watched from the treetops, the chilling sound of footsteps that weren't my own. I shrugged them off. I thought they were being dramatic. I always did my usual routine, jogging through the safe parts of the trail, enjoying the crunch of leaves underfoot. That day, I felt bold. Reckless, even. As I wandered deeper, a shiver snaked down my spine. The chill was unnatural, almost a breath of something otherworldly. I glanced at the trees, their twisted branches like skeletal fingers reaching for me. It felt like they were alive, shifting slightly as if something dark was lurking just out of sight. Then, I heard a soft rustling, slithering through the underbrush. My skin prickled. I stopped. Held my breath. The world went silent. No birds, no wind. Just that noise, drawing nearer. My heart thudded harder. I could smell the damp earth, mixed with a strangely sweet scent like rotting fruit. It wrapped around me, heavy and suffocating. Shadows danced in the corners of my vision, flickering and distorting as I turned, peering into the blackness. I stumbled back, but the whispering grew louder, swirling around me like a living creature. Desperation clawed at my throat. I was not alone. Something was watching. I could feel it. It was then that an old, broken sign caught my eye, half buried in the leaves: "Danger, turn back now." My breath quickened. I turned to flee, but it felt like the woods were closing in, the branches curling like hands. And then I saw it. A figure emerging from the shadows, eyes glowing like coals. My scream caught in my throat, but before I could move, the ground beneath me trembled. Then, a door slammed shut behind me, echoing through the stillness. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Panic surged through me as the figure melted from the shadows, its glowing eyes fixated on my trembling form. The air crackled with a sense of dread, and I backed up against the bark of a gnarled tree, trying to become one with the twisted wood. But it felt alive and oppressive, like it wanted to consume me as much as the creature before me did. Stay away. I croaked, barely able to voice my fear. The figure shifted, more solid now. It appeared humanish, yet distorted and wrong. The shadows cloaked its body, bending light in unnatural ways, rendering its features indistinguishable but unmistakably horrific. Sinewy limbs reached out, elongated fingers curling towards me like a spider poised to ensnare its prey. I whipped around, intending to sprint away, but the woods had changed. The familiar path I had taken was now a labyrinth of dark, oppressive foliage. Vines snaked from the trees, entangling my feet, pulling me back into the depth of the forest as the whispers crescendoed, taunting me, laughing at my plight. "Help!" I shouted, my voice swallowed by the encroaching gloom, the only response a wretched cackle that echoed like broken glass. I stumbled, trying to free myself, but the harder I fought, the tighter the vines constricted. It felt as if the very earth beneath me craved my surrender. With a desperate lurch, I broke free and ran, the glowing eyes tracking me like a predator. Branches clawed at my skin, their sharp edges tearing fabric and flesh alike. The sweet scent intensified, turning rancid, filling my lungs with the taste of decay. I gasped, desperate for air. The woods had become a suffocating tomb. I burst into a small clearing, the moonlight casting a silvery sheen over the cracked earth. But something was off. The ground was littered with bones. My heart sank as I recognized the remnants of what could only belong to lost souls, their hollow sockets adding to the gathering darkness around me. I was standing on sacred ground, a place where lives had been extinguished, their memories twisted into this horrific dimension. The whispers changed. I could hear agonized cries hidden in the rustling leaves, eerie echoes of despair threading through the spine-chilling sound. Gritting my teeth, I forced my trembling legs to move. I had to escape this nightmare. I had to find the way out. But as I turned, I was once again confronted by the creature, now towering directly in my path. Its skeletal frame towered with a sense of malicious satisfaction, eyes now swirling with a storm of emotions: rage, hunger, and sorrow. It reached out with a grotesque smile, revealing jagged teeth that dripped a dark, viscous ooze. "Stay with us," it whispered, the words slithering into my ears like a venomous serpent. "You're one of us now." With panic coursing through me like fire, I screamed and dove to the side, the creature's claw just grazing my shoulder, leaving a trail of cold through my body. I felt its essence seeping into my skin as I rolled away, fighting against the disorientation that threatened to overwhelm me. Scrambling to my feet, I bolted. The trees roared as I crashed through them, branches snapping behind me like angry whispers. I could hear the creature's footsteps thundering and relentless, like a death march chasing me deeper into the darkness. Then I saw it, a faint glow flickering in the distance, almost reassuring. My heart leaped as I sprinted towards that light, praying it would lead me to safety. But as I neared, jagged shapes emerged from the shadows, ghostly figures rising up from the ground, indistinct faces twisted in anguish. They pointed, their mouths open wide in silent screams. I could hardly breathe, the weight of their sorrow suffocating me. I stumbled backward, colliding with the dirt. "Join us," a whisper echoed, haunting and soft like shadows sighing through the trees. I seized the panic within me, shoving it deep down, forcing my legs to push against the earth one more time, toward that glowing light. Just a few steps away, but the glow dimmed, flickering out like a dying star. The darkness rushed in, engulfing me. The hunter had become the hunted. And that's when I felt the ground beneath me opening, a mouth of darkness yawning wide as a horrific wail erupted from my throat. Moments later, my world faded, and I plummeted, swallowed whole by the abyss. Then silence fell. Darkness danced on the edges of my consciousness, wrapping around me like the very roots of the forest that had sought to ensnare me. The weightlessness of falling turned into a sickening stillness as I landed not on earth but on a cold, hard surface that sent jolts of pain up my legs. I blinked against an oppressive dark, trying to reconcile my breathless panic with my new surroundings. As my eyes adjusted, I realized I was in a cavernous space, a hollow whisper of the forest above. The air was stale, pregnant with the smell of damp earth and something more sinister, like iron, the unmistakable scent of blood. The walls dripped with dark moisture that glistened under a faint glow, an eerie bioluminescence resonating from clusters of grotesque fungi extending like talons from the stone. That I struggled to my feet, wincing as pain radiated from my shoulder. It felt as if the creature's touch still lingered there, icy and confined, a brand marking me as part of this dreadful realm. My heart raced. I had fallen into the very bowels of the beast that haunted the forest, and it felt alive with the stirrings of long-forgotten screams. As I took hesitant steps forward, the whispers returned, a chorus of tormented voices reverberating off the cavern walls. "Help us, help us!" they pleaded, sending shivers coursing through my spine. The more I strained to listen, the more the voices seemed to vanish, replaced by a malevolent laughter that echoed through the darkness. "Join us!" they chimed in harmony, cold and seductive like a siren's call. That I reached out, touching the damp wall, my fingertips brushing over rough edges, catching the remnants of what felt alarmingly like a pulse of despair, of yearning for release. I had to escape, I had to find a way back, but the whispers yanked at my mind, ensnaring my thoughts like a web spun tight. That I felt drawn to a mural etched across the cavern wall, or perhaps it was a mass of old, decaying roots that instinctively aligned into shapes. I squinted, horrified as I deciphered its meaning. It was a grotesque tapestry depicting figures trapped in their own nightmares, pleading for salvation, yet being consumed by the darkness surrounding them. My own face was among them, twisted among countless others lamenting their fate. Heart pounding, I tore my gaze away, shoving the vision deep within the recess of my mind. The horror of this place throbbed like a living thing, feeding off my fear. I staggered backward, but caught myself just in time. I couldn't afford to fall apart. Panic laced through me as I recalled those glowing eyes outside, watching and waiting. What if they were just a reflection of this abyss? What if they were what beckoned me down here? A sudden rustling caught my attention from deeper within the cavern, drawing my focus like a moth to flame. My body tensed as I peered into the dense shadows beyond. "Hello?" I called into the void. The panic felt like barbed wire wrapping tighter around my chest. In response, a figure emerged, stumbling out of the darkness, a distorted silhouette wrapped in ragged cloth. It glanced down at its own hands, which were skeletal and twisted, the skin stretched tight over frail bones. The face, though partially obscured, was familiar. A friend from long ago, lost in the woods, now caught in the same wretched fate. "Help," the figure croaked, eyes wide with terror that mirrored my own. Its mouth quivered, lined with agony. "They'll come for you too. You have to run." Before I could process the words, shadows flickered around the edges of the cavern, gathering thick and fast, morphing into more of those wretched figures from the mural. The air grew colder, the very essence of despair rising with each heartbeat. The walls began to quake as if the abyss was alive, writhing in anticipation. Suddenly, the ground beneath the friend cracked, splintering like glass. I lunged forward, reaching for their outstretched hand, but in a horrifying moment, the gaping maw of the earth opened wide, swallowing them whole. The last thing I saw was their terrified gaze, begging for salvation that would never come. A rush of cold air blasted into me, a chilling reminder that I was not alone. I watched as the shadows thickened, creeping toward me, pulling tighter like a vice. Thick hands reached out from the darkness, gnarled fingers beckoning, trying to drag me back. Adrenaline surged, igniting every nerve as I turned on my heel to flee. But just as I pushed away, the cavern trembled again, sending vibrations through my bones. The whispers climbed louder, morphing into wails, the figure's eyes dancing in the flickering light, a warning and an invitation all at once. "Stay with us, become one with us." And as I ran, I realized the ground was quaking not from fear, but from anticipation. Something was awakening, something deep below me, something far worse than the shadows that hungered for my soul. With the ground dropping beneath me, I was faced with a choice: leap into the endless pit or confront the malevolence that sought to drown me here. My heart raced as I made a fateful decision, and then everything went dark once more, the air alive with the echoes of lost souls. What I didn't see was the monstrous form breaking free behind me, merging with the shadows, a horror born of the despair that consumed the woods. I couldn't know it was there, hunting me, the whispers morphing into a joyous howl that echoed in triumph as I fell through the void. A pounding sensation drummed through the silence, reverberating like a heartbeat against the cold stone walls of the cavern. As I plummeted into darkness, the air rushed past me, seeking to snatch away my breath, the desperate wails of the tormented masses intertwining with my own frantic thoughts. This wasn't just an escape, it was a descent into a realm where fear was the only reality. With an abrupt thud, I struck something solid and cold, the impact rattling my bones. Pain shot through me, but I forced it aside. I lay still for a moment, keeping my breath shallow and methodical, like a martyr hiding from the shadow of the altar. The darkness hummed around me, and even without sight, I could feel it creeping close, heated and heavy, a predator patiently awaiting its prey. My surroundings shifted, the ground under me felt different, more viscous, not stone but a flesh-like substance that throbbed with an abhorrent life of its own. I struggled to rise, my limbs sluggish as though weighed down by 1,000 burdens, each whispering secrets of torment into my ear. Gathering myself, I shifted unsteadily, my fingers brushing against the slick surface. In that instant, the cavern seemed to inhale, drawing air deep from its core, and a low growl echoed around, meth breath of something unholy. Is anyone there? I croaked, my voice cracking against the suffocating darkness. The only answer was a shifting sound, low and guttural. The shadows rippled around me as I squinted into the black, searching for some glimmer of hope, a path leading to freedom. Then, just as it had before, the low chuckle cut through the air, resonating off the walls and freezing me in place. Why run from home? A voice questioned, smooth as silk yet brimming with malice. You are already part of this family. Instinct drove me to retreat, but the mass beneath me quivered, some grotesque being recoiling at my movement as if recognizing a long-lost relative. I clawed at the cold, slick surface beneath me, throwing back images of the figure I had glimpsed earlier, the last pleading eyes swallowed by the abyss. My heart screamed at me, demanding to be freed from this place of horrors, yet the very air buzzed with a sensation far more intoxicating, that beckoning call that urged me to embrace the darkness. Join us. The whispered plea of the cavern morphed into laughter, a cacophony that echoed through my mind. You're one of us now. I pressed my back against the wall, feeling the dampness seep into my clothes, the frigid chill gnawing at my skin. The darkness hung heavy above, and within that suffocating void, a sudden shape formed. A face emerged, grotesquely familiar, the features skewed by madness, the face of my friend, the one who had called to me, now twisted in a twisted parody of anguish. They reached out, their fingers elongated like branches, trailing the foul scent of decay behind them. Help me. It's feasting on us. Their voice broke like splintered glass, eyes sinking deep into skull-like depths. You must fight it. Resist, yet how could I resist? Despite the warning, a compulsion bubbled within me, a wild hunger for understanding, for a connection with the horrors below, but a sudden shift in atmosphere snapped the reverie. Something deep within the cavern quaked in rage. The shadows began to swell, swirling around me, twisting and clawing, growing ever denser as the voices erupted into a frenzy, pleading and shrieking, blurring into a monstrous choir. It was no longer just the softly seductive call. It had morphed into a frenzied growl that reverberated through the very marrow of my bones. Don't listen. Run. With a surge fueled by desperation and fear, I turned and fled again, stumbling through the darkness as the ground beneath me pulsed violently. It was as though the cavern itself were alive, thrumming with a rhythm that was nothing short of a heartbeat, an ominous signal of something pestilent awakening. I pushed past the shadows, feeling fingers reach through the darkness toward me, grasping but never catching. Join us, they sang, voices now thick and suffocating, a miasma of madness swirling around my thoughts. I continued to escape, heart racing as tunnels forked in front of me, narrowing into winding passages that twisted and contorted like the very world above. Just when I thought I might taste freedom, I nearly tumbled forward into an expansive chamber, the ground below giving way into a vast abyss. To my horror, gleaming masses adorned the walls like torn remnants of body and soul, echoes of those who had fallen here before. And there, chained by their own despair, were the silhouettes of my friends, forever trapped in a dance of futility, forever longing for a savior who wouldn't come. God, why? I choked out, backing away from the edge. The ground trembled violently, sending ripples through the darkness. An insistent pull began, dragging me toward the edge as if it were a yearning heart calling to me. Shadows crawled out from the darkness and surged forward, a tide of anguished faces hidden in the depths. I clutched at the walls, searched for something to hold on to, but only found the flesh of the abyss burning against me. What once was a wall was now a convulsing mass, and then, a voice emerged from that writhing darkness, one that felt both ancient and familiar. You cannot escape your fate. Join us or embrace the void. With the voices rising in a chorus of torment, I felt myself slipping, rational thought replaced with instinctual fear. As I teetered close to that shuddering precipice, I locked eyes with my friend, now nothing more than longing and darkness, their outstretched fingers a plea. Together. They whispered, a promise veiled in terror. The chamber echoed my damning hesitation, and as the ground began to fracture, I was thrust into a chaotic whirlwind of darkness and light, deciphering the outlines of their anguished faces one last time. I braced myself for the plunge into oblivion, but mere moments from the edge, an undeniable force yanked beyond the chasm, sending the shadows screaming as I was engulfed in their embrace. As the walls beckoned me with familiar voices and the abyss opened wide, I plunged toward uncertainty, feeling a terrible release pull at my soul, but the hands below began to rise, dragging everything into that agonizing scream of forgotten despair. And then all went dark once more, a whirlwind of sorrow entwined around me as I felt the truth claw its way into my consciousness, a promise long forgotten, and the taste of despair lingered like poison on my tongue. The swell of darkness enveloped me, a suffocating shroud that pulled me deeper into its depths. I had lost all sense of direction, the world above fading into an echo, a distant memory. The unspeakable nature of this realm seeped into my very essence, gnawing at the edges of my mind and rendering my thoughts incoherent. An amalgamation of regret, fear, and a strange sense of belonging coursed through me. I drifted through shadows, caught in a liminal space between despair and acceptance. Faint whispers coiled around me like tendrils, their words indistinct yet intoxicating, wrapping me tighter in their embrace. "Stay with us," they whispered, "you belong here." I felt their pull, an indistinguishable urge that seemed to resonate in sync with the pulsating beat of the cavern walls. Just as I thought I might succumb to its eerie allure, a chilling sound shattered the silence, a haunting wail that pierced through the haze that surrounded me. The cries grew louder, tearing at the fabric of this inescapable reality, and something deep within me stirred, igniting a spark of defiance. The anguished traits of my friends know, the echoes of their souls rose around me, a cacophony of despair stirred by an unfathomable, malevolent force. "Awaken." A voice resonated through the thick air, commanding yet sorrowful, a distorted version of the figure I had glimpsed earlier, twisted in agony. Their face flickered before me like a dying flame, each glimmer offering a piece of the past I desperately clung to. "You must fight before it claims you too." The shadows writhed and twisted, forming grotesque shapes that taunted me as they howled my name. I pushed against the tide of despair, clawing toward that faint glimmer of resistance. But the presence swelled with impatience, a furious entity that thrummed just out of reach, eager to consume me. "Join us." The chorus intensified, voices blending into an horrific melody. "This is your home. Embrace it, let it take you." I staggered backward, feeling walls of viscous flesh pulse with renewed life. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught movement. A figure darted across the chamber, shadowy and indistinct. It beckoned to me, a fleeting whisper in the chaos. As I strained to see clearer, recognition coursed through my veins. A friend, Aaron, whose face had once been vibrant, now marred with the wear of torment. "Help me!" he shouted, desperation coloring his voice. "We need to get out before it." The ground beneath me tremored violently as a mournful sigh rose through the chamber, drowning out his plea. I caught a glimpse of the pulsating heart of the cavern, glimmering with a sickly light, an entity of grotesque power, an epicenter of the madness entwined in this void. As shadows converged toward me, I felt an almost magnetic force pulling me closer to the source of devastation. I fought against it, but with every ounce of resistance, a new wave of despair crashed into me. "Fight it!" Aaron screamed, his figure nearing collapse under the weight of invisible chains. Suddenly, the walls convulsed, and the grotesque heart revealed a maw, saccharine and terrible, stretching open to welcome me into its depths of anguish. Tendrils issued forth, grasping at my legs, enveloping me, squeezing like a vice. Then came a horrific roar, a reverberation that shook the entire chamber, sending shockwaves through my body. The multitude of tortured souls screamed in unison, a sound that resonated with a dreadful finality. They erupted into dimensional rifts, limbs outstretched in a desperate plea for liberation. My heart raced, adrenaline coursing through my veins as I steadied myself against that insatiable pull. "No! I won't succumb!" I yelled, and my cry seemed to ripple through the shadows, momentarily stalling the advance. "Do you really think you can escape?" The cavern responded, the voice echoing from everywhere and nowhere, mocking. "You are part of our collective, and you cannot sever that bond." A blinding flash lit the ether of vision yet unbidden. Among the swirling mass, I glimpsed memories of my life before this descent, the laughter of friends, the comfort of home, the warmth of daylight slowly fading like a dream. The realization sent a shock through me. Was not just fighting for my own soul but for every echoed relic of their existence tethered to this wretched place. In that moment, clarity surged through me. I gathered every ounce of my strength, recalling the bonds we'd forged, the light we once shared, and pressed against the tide, fighting for my body, for my friends, for our reality. It was then the laughter faded momentarily, twisted into howls of rage, feeding off the weakened shadows, each anguished cry pushing me toward the void, but just as I took a step forward, the very ground beneath me broke apart, and the shadows erupted like a storm, millions of faces blending into a monstrous vis-a-vis, a smirking, grinning horror that promised liberation at a cost I could not comprehend. With one final gasp, I felt myself teetering on the edge of sanity, racing against the engulfing darkness as it lunged towards me, multiplying and gnashing their teeth. Some bonds can never be broken, echoed through the void as the darkness engulfed me fully, whispering sweet promises of an eternal embrace, and then, nothing but silent madness enveloped me, leaving only a single thought, echoing in the depths of despair: there was no escape. I floated through the cold emptiness, time ceasing to exist, as if I had become a mere ghost in a play stripped of relevance. The silence hung thick, dense like fog, smothering the fleeting memories that clung desperately to my being. Yet, amidst the oppression, something more profound stirred within the darkness, a heartbeat, a rhythmic pulse that throbbed in a disconcerting cadence, yearning to coax me back into its embrace. Tentatively, I blinked and refocused my senses. The pulse grew louder, converging into a single presentiment that echoed with each thud, a taunting reminder that I was not alone. Against my instincts, I drifted towards the source, pulling me through a dreadful anticipation that clawed at my insides. Shadows formed and dissolved around me, shapes twisting in and out of focus, giving rise to the phantom remnants of anguish, images of faces contorted in silent screams, their eyes hollow and pleading. A sudden chill swept over me, cold as ice, as I penetrated deeper into the abyss, finding myself before a ragged fissure in the cavern wall. An ominous light seeped through, a sickly green glow that danced and flickered like flames seeking to lure unwitting souls into a fatal trap. As I approached, an echoing wail filled the air, reverberating through the walls with tragic elegance, a lament for the unsung lives absorbed by this haunted realm. I resisted, aware that each step was a betrayal to my very existence. The memory of my friends loomed over me, begging for rescue from the grasp of an unrelenting darkness. The fissure widened, revealing a way forward, and within its depths, the pulse took on a life of its own, drawing me toward the heart of the chaos. Help! The voice was familiar, achingly so, stirring within me an emotion too profound to ignore. Was it Aaron's plea, distorted by torment and desperation? Please don't leave us. The sorrow enveloped me as I stepped into the fissure, and the atmosphere shifted instantly. The walls pulled tight around me, and I was encased in an archway that felt alive, pulsating with breath-like rhythm. The whispers swirled around my head, urging me closer to the luminous agony pulsating within. Join us, they cooed, laced with a blend of sweetness and decay, wrapping around my heart with tender fingers before tightening into a suffocating grip. As I pressed further into the cavern, I glimpsed a scene that twisted my gut into knots, a tableau of despair. Ghostly apparitions filled the void, their faces stark and familiar, the individuals I had once laughed and shared secrets with, now trapped in limbo, their eyes stripped of the light that once shone. Why won't you help us? A voice cut through the haze. It was Claire, her features marred and eyes rimmed with shadows, reaching out as if to touch the remnants of our shared memories. We are lost. Stop. My voice emerged, hoarse and unsure, a desperate echo against the tortured cries. I'm trying. I don't know how. The shadows laughed, punctuating my plea with a sharp, chilling response. No one escapes here. You will join them, embrace your fate, become part of the forever lost. In a frenzy, I darted from face to anguished face, pleading for recognition, for acknowledgement of our shared lives somehow objectified in this monstrous display. I won't leave you, I promise. I screamed, my words dissolving into the air like wisps of smoke as despair brightened around me, but then the light shifted, a rapid intensity that drew my gaze to a periphery where the shadows writhed into grotesque formations. A new horror emerged amidst the swarm, a towering figure born from the darkest recesses of despair, its form indistinct yet mesmerizingly horrific, a blend of all tormented souls trapped for eternity. Your bond is weak. Your will is fleeting. It bellowed. The cavern tremored beneath its weight, a manifestation of our deepest fears, an entity forged from the remnants of our unity, simmering with malevolence and rage. You must choose between your survival and the salvation of others. My heart raced as I stepped back, the reality of the choice crystallizing into an agonizing decision. The entity skulked forward, feeding off my hesitation, feasting on the silence that filled the abyss. I could feel the weight of my friend's despair lying heavy upon me, an unwavering pressure that grasped at my throat, suffocating my will. Choose. Save yourself, or fight for those you hold dear. The entity repeated, its voice now a desperate plea that echoed deep in my marrow. I stood frozen, the truth coiling around me like serpents. And just as the crushing weight became unbearable, a spectral light flickered in the hollow air, cascading vibrations of voices, 1,000 souls rising and falling like the tide, each echo of their existence propelling me toward clarity. Their yearning renditions called out from the unseen abyss, and with a surge of energy, I turned back to face the entity, defiance igniting within me. I will not abandon them. I shouted, letting my voice erupt from the depths of my chest. As my rebellion resonated through the cavern, the darkness congealed, seizing in retaliation. Faces erupted from the shadows, contorted in horror, a dissonance of fury melding together in a crescendo of cacophony. Just as I believed my conviction might hold, the ground beneath me shattered into crumbling fragments, revealing an endless chasm pulsating with an insatiable hunger, the maw of despair ready to consume us all. And in those final, fleeting moments, I felt the entity closing in, its claws stretching forth to seize my wavering resolve, shattered like glass against the dark promise. Echoed in the shadows. I faced its fury as I slipped towards the edge of oblivion, knowing I had initiated an unholy tide that would either save my friends or plunge us all into chaos. But just as the cavern threatened to swallow me whole, a deafening roar erupted, shaking the foundations of my perceived reality. And amidst that chaos, a singular refrain rang out, promising an undeniable truth lurking just beyond the grasp of horrific shadows: everything must perish before it can live. I fell, spiraled into the maw of darkness beneath me, the sensation of weightlessness swallowed by a vortex of twisting shadows. My surroundings ignited with a blinding brightness, drowning out the darkness, igniting panic within me. I was no longer in the cavern, I was thrown back into the world of the living, or what remained of it. I landed hard on cold ground, a shock that coursed through my body like venom. Gasping for breath, the air felt thick, almost viscous, as it clawed at my lungs. I pushed myself up and blinked, struggling to adjust to the distortion of reality around me. I was in a clearing, the familiar woods of Pascagoula stretching ominously in every direction, but something was terribly wrong. The trees loomed higher than ever, their branches twisted and gnarled like the claws of some ancient predator. A low hiss echoed through the silence, as if the very forest was alive and breathing an ominous warning. Pillars of mist curled toward the ground, thick and malevolent, weaving together to form phantasmagoric shapes that flickered and shifted, eluding comprehension. Where are you? I called out, straining to find my friends, remnants of their presence lingering like the scent of a fading memory. But the only answer was an echo of my own voice, a cruel mockery spiraling away in the ever-thickening fog. I stumbled to my feet, adrenaline coursing through my veins. Whispers drifted between the trees, words weaving together frantically, splintering into questions of existence and despair. "Help us!" came the fleeting cry, barely discernible in the suffocating air but laced with a familiar agony. "Come back, please!" Fighting through a wave of nausea, I pressed into the woods, dodging spindly branches reaching for me like skeletal fingers. I needed to find them, needed to pull them back from whatever darkness had stolen them away. The whispers rushed around me, combining into a faceless choir, voices blending into one, each note a plea that struck at my heart. Then, in the distance, a flicker caught my eye beyond the trees. A shimmer of light, shimmering sapphire and deep crimson, echoed like a heartbeat intertwined with dread. Against my better judgment, I directed my uncertain steps toward it, each footfall feeling weighted with purpose and fear. The light grew brighter, more consuming, until I stepped into a small clearing that opened like a gaping maw. In its center pulsed a massive, luminescent orb, a swirling live thing that radiated both warmth and terror, a duality that tugged at the core of my being. Faces appeared and disappeared across its surface, distorted images of my friends crying out, their mouths forming words I could not hear but felt with every thread of my soul. "What are you?" I gasped, fear flooding my chest as I gazed into the heart of the glowing mass. The orb sang to me in a low tone, vibrating through the air into my bones, flooding my mind with disjointed memory as it was holding them captive, feeding off their anguish, weaving our shared fate into an inescapable tapestry of despair. I could feel the weight of their entrapment grasping at the edges of my consciousness, clamoring for acknowledgement while distancing itself from the reality of our bond. "Join us." The orb pulsed, its light intensifying, illuminating the faces of my friends moving erratically beneath its surface. "Give in. Become one with the pulse." "No!" I shouted, my voice torn away by the vortex of fear swelling around me. "I won't abandon them." As I stepped closer, trying to formulate a plan to save them, a searing pain shot through me, radiating from my chest as though the orb had plunged 1,000 needles into my heart. I staggered back, gripping my side as agony blurred my vision. The orb's light shifted, morphing into a kaleidoscope of colors that twisted and churned, tearing at my perception of reality. Bursting out of the glowing mass were tendrils of darkness, slithering through the air like serpents, seeking to ensnare me. Desperation propelled me backward, but I stumbled over a root hidden in the shadows. As I fell again, the tendrils grasped my ankle, tightening around me like a vice, dragging me toward the haunting glow. "Don't let go." I heard Aaron's voice call, closer than before but drenched in terror. "We're slipping. Fight." "Fight what?" I shouted back into the shimmering abyss, feeling the darkness coiling around me. Suddenly, the light exploded outward, and in the chaos of its blinding radiance, I saw them Adam, Claire, Aaron trapped in an unfathomable void behind the ominous power of the light. They screamed, their faces a blend of pain and desperate hope as they reached for me just beyond the tendril's grasp. "No. I won't lose you." Just as my fingers brushed against theirs, the orb released a guttural growl that reverberated through the clearing, imploding like a dying star. The ground beneath us shattered again, splintering into a chasm that opened wide beneath our feet, a gory rift promising eternal doom. In the terrifying spiral toward nothingness, I reached out, feeling a sudden connection tether forming from my soul to theirs. Yet as I grasped for them across the yawning divide, shadows poured forth from the void, grotesque figures emerging with faces twisted in agony, their mouths opening wide in anticipation of our impending doom, and as that very moment unraveled into chaos and despair, I finally understood the chilling truth as the light pulsed fiercely in response to the void. The forest had awakened, and its secrets were ready to claim us all. Everything must perish before it can live. The shadows echoed, circling us ominously, their anticipation palpable. But as they descended, the orb cracked and shattered. The echo of repressed cries burst forth as the ground gave way, and in an instant, everything was consumed by darkness, the horrific promise of the woods whispering my greatest fears. I had awoken the unsleeping wood's ancient wrath, and whatever lay hidden within it would not want to remain silent any longer. I was spiraling into an abyss, the remnants of reality snapping like fragile threads behind me. The air grew thick and heavy, the mist wrapping around me like a vice, suffocating and freezing, merging with the terror that coiled in my gut. From the depths of darkness, the whispers crescendoed into a deafening chorus, clawing at my sanity. "You shouldn't have come back," they chanted, voices entwined and filled with venom. "Return the lost, return to the dark." Fragments of luminescence flared to life momentarily, ghostly faces, pale and desperate, reaching out to me, their features frozen in a mask of horror. My friends were caught in the void, reflections of despair and anger dancing across their pallid visages. The ground buckled beneath me, struggling to hold the chaos, and with one final gasp, the world collapsed. Darkness swallowed the light, coiling around my throat, silencing my screams. Flashes of memory surged through my mind. Laughter around a campfire, faces illuminated by flickering flames, the uncertainty of the woods beckoning us deeper into its embrace. And now, in this purgatory stripped of hope, I was the reason they suffered. With a surge of strength, I wrenched my body away from the tendrils of shadow, only to be pulled back as if an unseen force latched onto my very essence. I was caught between the true world and this sickened replica, the orb now erupting with unimaginable power, spilling molten light into the void. I had to fight to save my friends and myself. "Claire!" I cried, forcing her name through my cracking throat, desperate to revive their memories, to call them back from the edge of catastrophe. A faint outline of her emerged amidst the writhing darkness, her once vibrant features now twisted with despair, her mouth moving soundlessly as though bound by silence. "Help us please." I could feel her fear vibrating in the air, a resonance that curled around my heart, sharpening my resolve. Turning my focus inward, I sought the tether we shared, that invisible bond forged under the canopy of friendship. "I'm coming. Hold on." The shadows reeled, screaming with a cacophony of rage, dark tendrils whipping against the orb until it pulsed violently, the shock waves rippling through the air. With every ounce of will I could muster, I drew upon my fear, my love for them, channeling it into a deafening note that pierced the veil of darkness. The orb's surface flickered erratically, the ghostly faces beating against it like frantic wings. "Not yet!" I roared, frustration bleeding into desperation. I concentrated hard, pouring every drop of hope into that connection. Suddenly it flickered, crackling like lightning before bursting outward in waves of iridescent light, forcing the tendrils to recoil. That I lunged forward, abandoning reluctance, grasping toward Claire's hand, the ribbon of light connecting us growing taut. But before our fingers could meet, a gaping maw yawned wide beneath her, jagged teeth emerging from the void, snapping with a hunger forged from an eternity. The ground heaved violently, sucking her back deeper into the well of shadows. "No! Not again!" I screamed. Panic surged through me, drowning out everything but the terrified cries echoing around me. I could feel the angry presence of the woods winding within the trees, their trunks thundering like drums in my ears, urging me to give in, to accept the dark. "Despair is your destiny," they whispered, every syllable sending icy spikes down my spine. But as I fought against the tide surging toward hopelessness, I noticed something in the shadows swirling at the edge of my vision, a figure hunched and grotesque, a monstrous silhouette lurking within the gathering dark. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural luminescence, watching me, studying me, feeding on my fear. The creature had no form I could identify, shifting through dimensions, a paradox of malice and sorrow, a harbinger of suffering. "Join us," it crooned, a voice like grinding gravel that sent chills coursing through my veins. "In time, you will see. We all must become one. No. I bellowed, wielding defiance against the malevolence, pulling on every ounce of adrenaline. "I won't become you." A sudden wave of energy shot through me again, bright and blinding, illuminating the woods as a cry erupted from the orb, sending vibrations into the very fabric of the air. The ground trembled in response, and the forest howled in agony, trees bending as if trying to escape some unseen disaster. I was slipping, both from this world and the next, but in that moment of intense illumination, the dark tendrils recoiling, I glimpsed something, a fleeting piece of paper caught in the underbrush, fluttering like a dying leaf. It bore a message scrawled in an erratic script: "The blood of the lost offers enlightenment and the key to salvation." Before I could grapple with its meaning, the rift beneath the orb roared violently, dark shadows pouring out like a flood. They surged toward me, arms reaching, grasping, pulling me, friends' faces twisted in terror, begging for help. Any hope I had of saving them vanished beneath the tide of shadows, and as I felt myself being dragged back into the horror, the monstrous figure in the fog sank closer, its eyes glowing with malicious glee, taunting me from beyond the veil. I finally understood. The darkness didn't just want us to join, it wanted to devour our very essence, turning our light into a forever extinguished memory. "Join us or perish as shadows do." And as the laughter of the woods echoed in my ears, sharp and final, I was hurled into the depths of despair, fate no longer certain, standing perilously on the edge of the unknown, the darkness hungering for a choice I had yet to make. The shadows swarmed, a sea of cold dread lapping hungrily at my legs as I struggled to maintain a grip on my sanity. Each whisper threaded through the air, urging me toward the abyss, they were the voices of my friends, bellowing in sorrow and rage. The laughter of the woods had transformed, now a predatory growl beckoning me to surrender to the darkness. I could feel their desperation tightening around my throat, squeezing the oxygen from my lungs while my heart racing against the ticking clock of oblivion. In the throbbing pulse of the void, I could feel something shifting, coalescing into a presence behind me that churned with ill intent like a dark undercurrent threatening to pull me under. The air thickened, electric with a lingering malice that clawed at the back of my mind. I dared not turn, afraid of what I might find lurking there, but the sickening urge to look became unbearable. I focused back on the orb, desperately clinging to the tether of light that pulsed ominously with each beat of my heart, flickering in time with the electric energy coursing beneath my skin. "Claire!" I shouted again, my voice cracked and ragged, "I won't leave you." I reached deeper within myself, grasping at fleeting memories, the warmth of her laughter, the gentle teasing, the way the sunlight danced across her hair. Though the shadows writhed, their forms ever shifting, I focused on that connection, envisioning a line of light that could wrap around her and pull her back. But each time I reached out, the dark maw lurked closer, teasing the edges of my vision. With a sudden fury, I pivoted to face the lurking presence behind me, forcing myself to meet the gaze of the grotesque figure. Its eyes glowed a ghastly green, reflecting the horror that now boiled within me. An amalgamation of broken faces and writhing limbs converged into a twisted caricature of a person's soul in torment trapped within its ghastly form, their whispers rising from its mouth like smoke. "Do you see now, the splendor of shadows?" It crooned, the words resonating within my skull. "Eternal togetherness, our love intermingling until the last vestiges of light flicker out. Your pain is merely a pathway. No. I will not succumb." I screamed, forcing the defiance into the heart of the storm coiling around me, where doubt and despair battled for control. "I have to save them." I focused back on Claire, felt the warmth of her spirit flickering beneath the shadows, and took a step toward Heronley, to be met with a shocking wave of rage that slammed into me, sending me sprawling to the ground. I gasped, scrambling against the earth that felt alive with malice, the roots of the trees grasping at my limbs like skeletal fingers seeking to inhibit my struggle. The earth split beneath me, revealing a chasm full of writhing shadows, undulating like an ocean of nightmares. I realized with a sickening dread that this was not merely a chasm, it seemed to pulse with life, breathing, waiting for me to falter. In my periphery, I caught sight of a familiar fragmented glow breaking through the gloom. It was Claire, her visage twisted in pain as she fought against the pull of the abyss that threatened to swallow her whole. "No! Claire!" I screamed, but the shadows swallowed my words, turning them into ghostly echoes. She looked at me with such desperation that it nearly broke me. "Help!" she mouthed, but her voice was a mere whisper lost against the wind. I could see her fingertips, ghostly pale, grasping at nothing, reaching for me but falling short, dragged down by the overwhelming tide of darkness. The grotesque figure loomed closer, its grin widening with malice. "You cannot save her. Surrender your fear, and you may join her in eternal peace," it hissed, tauntingly, the flesh of its face rippling like a turbulent sea. The shadows surged in, crashing past me, stealing the breath from my lungs, filling the air with the scent of decay and despair. I recoiled, stumbling back until I felt the hot breath of the dark presence against my neck, hissing my name in sinister delight. "Join us, allow your fear to crystallize into our power." It repeated, as if the echo of my own voice were tantalizingly near. Why did it want me? Why did it seek my surrender? The panic within me turned to resolve. If I could not save Claire, perhaps I could find another way out, find a way to remove the darkness claiming this place. Suddenly, I was struck by the image of the fluttering paper, its words emblazoned in my mind. The blood of the lost offers enlightenment and the key to salvation. What was it saying? It had mentioned blood. A shiver ran down my spine and a fervent focus took hold. I staggered backward, my pulse thudding madly as I ripped the thoughts from my mind. Survival instincts kicked in, and I knew what had to be done. My fingers grazed my pocket, feeling the knife resting there, the blade edged with recent memory as me friend's laughter, our plans to conquer these woods. "I'll do whatever it takes." I roared. The shadows writhed in their dark cacophony, recoiling as if I had struck a chord they dreaded. Blood binds. I shouted, my heart pounding in time with the shadows' furious rhythm, pulling at pieces of my own will and pulling them gently but firmly around me like a shield. But something unforgivable and sinister shifted in the air, a chill that settled in the marrow of my bones. The grotesque figure leered ever closer, its eyes flashing as it hunched forward, licking its lips ravenously. You think you can bargain with that which you do not understand? At that moment, as realization dawned, the ground beneath my feet splintered like glass, and I lost my footing, falling deep into the dark abyss beneath the earth, and with that plunge, air squelched like a snuffed candle flame. Everything went black, pulling me into an unfathomable void, silence wrapping around me like a suffocating shroud. I was engulfed, drowning in shadows, but just before the darkness closed in completely, I heard the whispers morph into something worse, something flesh-tinged and unsettling, but mingled within the sea of terror was an undeniable voice, a new face in the shadows I thought I'd lost forever. A voice that could only belong to Claire, now tinged with something darker. You're too late, they've already taken us. As the light flickered at the ends of my awareness, the presence of the grotesque figure lingered closer, waiting, its laughter mingling with Claire's cries, weaving a tapestry of despair that hinted I was not merely fighting the darkness, I was becoming part of it. I woke in the clearing, disoriented but alive, the moonlight slanting through the twisted branches. My heart still raced from what felt like a nightmare lingering just beyond the edge of consciousness, where shadows danced like lingering ghosts. As I blinked against the disorienting brightness of the moon, the familiar shape of the woods enveloped me once more, appearing deceptively serene. It felt like a cruel joke, a haunting mirage masking malevolence, but there was something different this time. An unsettling stillness held the air hostage, taut with unspoken dread. I rose painfully to my feet, feeling bruised, clumsy as I glanced around, searching for the traces of my friends. Claire? Aaron? Adam? My voice echoed through the eerie silence, and I imagined the shadows shifting in response. Fear gripped my chest, constricting tighter as I considered the abyss I had just escaped. The whispers, the darkness, had it all vanished like a fading dream. A tugging sensation pulled at my spirit, a sensation I had come to dread. The trees leaned in closer, whispering loudly, reminding me of the price I had been caught up in. I could hear their voices now, an inescapable chorus whispering sweet nothings. You belong to us, again. Each word slipped like poison into the cracks of my resolve. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the edge of the clearing, stepping into the moonlight, flickering like an apparition and then solidifying. My heart jolted. Claire, her eyes wide with longing yet tinged with something darker. You came back, she breathed, a smile playing on her lips, but it did not reach her eyes, now clouded and haunted. You're finally one of us.no, Claire. You're wrong. I shouted, recoiling at the accusation that pulsed through her words, shaking my head vehemently. We can still leave. We have to find the others. In that moment, I caught sight of behind her, shadows flickering ominously, twisting into grotesque forms that watched me with glimmering, hungry eyes. They're gone, she replied, her voice dropping into an eerie calm that made my skin crawl. We are all but echoes of what we used to be. And now we are part of the woods. The shadows laughed softly, and I felt the urge to succumb, dance at the corners of my mind.no. I yelled, feeling the primal fight surge through me. You don't understand. This isn't who you are. But the words felt hollow as I watched the play of sorrow and madness dance across her features. This place, it wants us. I gasped, stepping back, heart pounding, feeling the churning shadows pull at my legs. With a hiss, she stepped closer, and I staggered backward. You needed to realize, this is our fate. Everything about us belongs to the darkness now. Everything. As the words left her lips, I felt the sensation surging around, meth ground trembling beneath the weight of looming inevitability. She reached out, her fingers brushing me an electric connection that sent ice through my veins, raiding memories of laughter and sunlight, but now twisted into a mosaic of despair. That I was faced with the harsh truth. The wood's sinister heart had awakened, and I was its unwitting instrument. The figures emerged behind Claire, flickering with urgency. Adam and Aaron. Their faces were shrouded with despair yet glinted with impatience. "Help us!" they implored, their voices layered with anguish. "Fight back against it," yet as I faced them, bewildered and terrified, I understood. In the last moments of my plunge into the abyss, I had become entwined with the very essence of the Wutsa bond forged in fear and darkness, wrapped around my spirit like a vice. I was now an echo of those who had vanished, forever intertwined with this malevolence. The pulsing heart of the woods throbbed, and in that heartbeat, every secret, every sliver of despair intertwined, became a part of marrow and bone, flesh and truth. The whispers fiercely twisted and mingled, promising liberation if I'd only let go. It was then that realization crushed down upon me: freedom was a deceitful veil. The darkness demanded a sacrifice far worse, transforming souls into shadows, and now I stood at the precipice of becoming one with it. My friends had implored me to resist, to fight, but could I truly wash away the enormity of their shadows? As the urge pulsed through me, Dennis' laughter erupted from the surrounding darkness, echoing a thick, morose chorus. "Everything must perish before it can live," it sang, a twisted symphony that matched the rhythm of our shared fates. "Join us. Here, you can transcend, become pure. No. I screamed, thrusting my hands toward my friends, their faces twisting in the light of entwined sorrow and agony. But the pull from the forest was stronger, shifting and reshaping, testing my resolve. Claire's smile warped into something more grotesque, flickering like the spreading of shadows. Overwhelmed, the shadows closed in, wrapping tighter and tighter, threatening to drown me. But just before despair consumed me, flashes of hope ignited within. I could feel the remnants of what had been our laughter, our promises, the beauty we had shared alive within the corners of my soul. It surged against the tug of the void, a lifeline fighting against the tide. With a desperate scream, I surged forward, firm in my resolve. I gathered every shred of light that remained inside me, creating a shield against the consuming darkness. "You will not take me!" I shouted, and in that moment, the force of my will ignited, shattering through the shadows like glass. I pulled free the shades, unearthing layers of anguish, revealing the terrifying truth hidden beneath the darkness could only thrive upon despair, could only take hold when souls yielded to its whispers. And as the shadows writhed, I carried the resolve of my friends with me, the memories that illuminated the darkness like unquenchable flames. Tendrils broke away from my grasp, their anguished cries echoing in the night. The pulse of the woods began to falter, heartbeats slipping away into the invading light. I could hear Claire's voice intertwining through the chaos. "Don't stop. Together, we break the bond," and in that moment, I grasped their hands together, pulling each of them toward the light. Together, I cried against the pull of the forest, feeling the warmth of our shared memories clash against the lies. The shadows screamed in rage as they shredded apart, foreboding whispers falling silent under our collective strength, dispelling the malevolence that clutched at our souls. Together, we shouted in unison, a surge of unified voices echoing against the backdrop of the once oppressive darkness. Uprooted from its roots, the woods trembled, granting us the moment of light the ancient cursed presence had tried to suppress. And then, with one final push, I felt us break free. The darkness stuttered and hesitated, weakened as the chorus of our combined voices trembled through the trees like the wind through the leaves. Light spilled from the breaking dawn, illuminating the forest, flooding it with incandescent purity. Yet before we broke completely free, one last thing whispered through my thoughts, weaving into the fragile fabric of my realism. A warning echoed through my mind, sending ice through my veins. "Although you may escape, remember." The words lingered like a haunting promise, their meaning deep and insidious. "Evil never leaves." The woods of Pascagoula receded behind me as I fled forward, my friends by my side. But as I turned back to look once more, I caught a glimpse of the shadows coalescing once again beneath the trees, their watchful eyes shimmering like fading stars. And I knew, then, with a gut-wrenching realization, I may have left the woods behind, but they would never truly let me go. The darkness that had claimed so many had left its mark upon my soul, an imprint that would always echo a lingering reminder that the boundaries between light and shadow are but a heartbeat apart, ready to claim me once again. That I in my heart, I couldn't shake the horrifying truth that followed me like a chill, whispering eternally, "You cannot escape what you are."